Welcome to Mr. Robots channel for daily stories. I never tell this story because it just doesn't make any sense. I don't have an explanation for it, and lacking narrative meaning I have no idea how to tell it to my friends/family. As a result of never telling the story, the details have faded. It was however the creepiest thing that ever happened to me. When I was a younger woman, I moved, all alone, to Atlanta for an internship. I was dirt poor, so I took public transit everywhere I went. I encountered plenty of creepers on the train while I was there, but I was always able to get them to back off or to sneakily escape into the crowd. On my last day, I took train to the airport. A very large man approached me in a familiar style. He was both much taller and broader than me, dressed casually, maybe even cheaply. I followed my usual protocols, no smiling when you say no to something, holding on tight to all possessions, being ready to move, or even bolt if necessary. I don't think he ever asked for me to do anything. His interest wasn't explicitly sexual or flirtatious. He just talked to me intermittently with the cool confidence of someone who thinks you're not going anywhere. I wasn't too worried, but I didn't have the usual luxury of sneaking away and catching the next train. I had to be to the airport. I got off the train. He got off the train. There was no subterfuge about this. No, oh, I'm going to the airport too. At this point he was deliberately, explicitly walking with me. Still not flirting. Still not asking for anything. Not my number. Not anything. He got on the escalator with me. He closed his hand over mine on my rolling suitcase handle. I kept my grip tight on the handle thinking, what the fuck? I shoulder yanked away from him, but I was so surprised and scared by the weird, inexplicable move and the now familiar game of cat and mouse that I didn't react at all. I just held on tight, hoping, praying that I was strong enough to keep going my own way. There were enough people around that I could make a scene if I wanted to. Looking back, not reacting to this was really stupid, but I was young and completely out of sorts. It would have been easy, under the public circumstances, to say, hey, get your fucking hands off my suitcase. But I wasn't raised to be reactive/combative like that. That wasn't a part of my instinct repertoire. He started looking around, like he was trying to formulate a plan. At this point I was afraid. I don't exactly remember what happened next. There wasn't a struggle. It's like he just changed his mind and walked away. I made my flight and left Atlanta. But what the fuck was on his mind through the whole encounter? Why follow someone so far for no reason? Why make that specific grab? What the fuck was that? It wasn't the only time that I had strangers act like they knew me, but this guy didn't seem deranged or even slightly off. It was just so strange. I went on a guided cemetery tour at night. About 6 or 7 of us were standing around a tomb listening to the story of how the inhabitant had killed himself with a gun, when all of a sudden there was a big flash and the whole sky lit up green with smaller flashes. We found out later that we had witnessed a meteor breaking up. So the tour guide takes a moment, recovers from the surprise, and continues his story about how some decades after the poor chap had killed himself, someone broke into his tomb and stole his skull. We then moved on and walked further into the cemetery when we were startled by a loud bang. We shrugged it off as a car backfiring, laughed nervously at how on edge we were, and continued the tour. Shortly after we hear a couple more bangs in quick succession, and one of the tour party commented that they were pretty sure they were gunshots. There was another bang, closer. Definitely a gunshot. Then we saw a light in between some of the headstones, and I kid you not, we saw the figure of a man carrying a shotgun, slowly coming from the direction of the tomb we had just been at. We froze. I looked over to the tour guide, thinking it was some prank he plays on all his customers, but he was completely white and was backing away. It was a man with a shotgun, and he was walking towards us. He lifted a flashlight and pointed it directly at us. Several of us ducked behind the headstones as he yelled, "Get out of here. What the hell are you doing in this place?" Turns out the city council pays some guy to shoot possums in the cemetery and they forgot to warn the tour company. On a spring break trip, a friend and I got dropped off at the front gate to our condo. A security guard saw us and kept insisting on walking us up to the room. We kept saying no, and he seemed kinda weird. He followed us into the elevator, and I stood as close as I could to the buttons. He kept making weird comments and telling us how hot we were. We kept bringing up how all of our boyfriends and our guy friends were in the room waiting on us, and how there were like 10 people staying there. When the elevator hit our floor, we took off running as fast as we could. 2 weeks later, after we came home, there was a news story about the same security guard. He followed a girl onto the elevator and made her perform sexual favors before he'd let her go. Edit. Found the article about it. He didn't rape her. It was almost 6 years ago. He locked 3 girls in the elevator with him and tried to touch their boobs and threatened to evict them. 2 were minors. He was arrested for false imprisonment. I didn't use the word rape because it never said anything about rape in the article. I got locked in the car park at work after a bar close shift, and the security guard that came to help essentially told me he'd only let me out if I performed a random sexual favor for him. By far my creepiest moment ever. Reported the shit out of that guy. Security guards are supposed to make you feel safe. One time I was pumping gas and was approached by a couple who said they needed a ride. Their car had broken down and they needed to go about a mile up the road to get to their friend's work. Their destination is on my way, so I agree to take them. I pull out my phone and say half jokingly, okay, well, I'm just going to send a picture of you guys to my friend to make sure you don't rob me or something, haha. They both simultaneously turn and walk away. They don't say a word. I yell out, hey, you're walking the wrong way to get to destination. The man flips me the bird, and they keep walking, neither to where they said their car was nor where they wanted to go. I've been waiting a long time to tell Reddit the full story of the Whistler. This story requires many details, but it is unexplainable, creepy, and 100% true. I also have video evidence. When I was about 8 years old, I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood with my mom. It was maybe 11 p.m. We live next to a swamp/woods area on the edge of our neighborhood in Lansing, Michigan. I remember it being very silent and slightly windy. From down in the swamp we heard somebody whistling at us. It sounded sort of like a bird, but each whistle was different enough where the lack of consistency made it human-like. The whistle sounded higher, then lower. I can't really describe it. My mom had a concerned, slightly terrified look on her face and grabbed my hand and said that we should go inside quickly. I didn't understand because I was too young, but seeing my mom freak out made me freak out too. After a while, though, I kind of forgot about it. 2 years later, I was taking my dog out again, late at night. There is a large bush that could easily obscure a person behind it just next to the front door. As I was finishing the walk, the whistling noise started again. Same pitches, same inconsistent human-like tones. As soon as I heard it, a chill went down my spine as I remembered exactly the feeling of seeing my mom, terrified, looking down into the swamp at something I couldn't see. Maybe she couldn't either. I ran inside as fast as possible. Years went by, and I thought about it less and less. I told only a handful of people, and eventually it slipped from my mind. Fast forward to last summer, I'm 24, started dating my girl Sarah. We moved out to South Dakota for work. For Independence Day, we decided to go to Pierre, South Dakota and watch the fireworks along the bank of the Missouri River. There was a free camping spot behind a hospital where you could pitch your tent, hang out, and see the fireworks up the river. We were near the end of the campground and there were very few people around us. As it was getting dark, the fireworks began. They were pretty far away, so the illumination they brought was very little. Thus, we had to sit right at the edge of the river to be able to see them. A huge thunderhead was moving in, and a storm was imminent, so the air seemed electric and the wind was picking up. The atmosphere was eerie to say the least. The police boats herded all the other boats off of the river and had left our area to do that elsewhere. Most of the other campers walked up the river to have a better view of the fireworks, but Sarah and I stayed back and were drinking PBR tall boys and kicking it. Suddenly, we heard the sound of a paddle methodically dipping into the water. We saw a figure steering a canoe about 20 meters offshore. Sarah decided to go get more beers from the car, leaving me alone to stare at this mystery person. And then, of course, they whistled at me. My entire body was frozen and covered in goosebumps. It was the exact same whistler from my childhood, more than a decade earlier. I looked at the figure, but it was much too dark to discern who it could be. They were wearing a hat. When they were perpendicular to the shore from me, they stopped paddling, turned the canoe to face directly at me, and whistled right at me. I was so frightened I stood up and shouted at them, "Who are you?" They didn't say anything, just whistled a couple more times, turned the canoe 180 degrees, and paddled out of sight. I'm a videographer, so I already had my camera by my side and was taking video of the fireworks. As the canoe was almost out of sight, I grabbed my camera and got a shot of them whistling as they went away. When Sarah came back from getting beers, she was very confused as to why I was so freaked out. When I explained, she was freaked out a bit too. I was convinced we would both be murdered that night. How did this whistling person follow me after 14 years, all the way to South Dakota? Was it a coincidence? Why was it the same whistling noise? Who was that person, and where did they go? So many questions still unanswered. To this day I'm more afraid of being outside in the dark where I might hear that whistling again. I'm open to any explanations. If there is interest, I will find a plug and edit a little video of the fireworks and the whistling noise and the canoe disappearing. I'm in Uganda currently, and the internet is spotty where I am, so I'll do my best. TL, Dr. Whistling Person has haunted me since I was a boy. Can't explain. Help. Edit. Video is coming, I promise. Where I'm at in Uganda the power goes out sometimes, so if you don't hear from me either that happened or the whistler finally got me. Edit 2. Okay. Finally. I spent all afternoon uploading this video.
You whistling? Is it you? Stop it.
When I was still getting shots of the fireworks I heard the whistling starting. I was too afraid at that moment to point the camera directly at the canoe, so I just turned my microphone towards it and kept a low-key shot facing downriver towards the fireworks. If you wear headphones you can hear it better. It's the 2-note whistle, high then low. You can hear me ask my GF, "Are you whistling? Is that you?" She said no, but I wasn't sure, so I told her stop it. Because I was getting scared. The last shot I boosted the brightness as much as I could and still make out the person in the canoe. It looks like they're wearing a red sweater or something. *** edit. It's been a while and I apologize for that. I'm back in the US now and I asked my mom about it. I sat her down and played the video for her. She honestly doesn't remember anything like that happening. I wish I had something more exciting to say. Alas, it must remain a mystery. In my country, Venezuela, there is a legend about a guy called El Silban the Whistler, a sort of damned soul that warns people of their coming death. I'm not making this shit up. I'll try to translate parts from the article for you to see if they fit what you experienced. The legend is that of a young man who killed his father as a revenge because he had killed his wife and called her a whore. After this event, His grandfather had him tied to a pole in the middle of a field and whipped him, had his wounds cleaned with a guarding drinking alcohol, and released him with 2 rabid and hungry dogs, but before release he cursed him to carry his father's bones for the rest of eternity. He has a particular whistling similar to music notes def gab in that order, going up to F, and then going low to B. It's said that when the whistling is heaped closely there is no danger, because he is really far, but when the whistling sounds far he is really close. It's also said that the whistling announces the death of those who hear it. He can be anywhere at any time. It seems that the only thing that can save the person that hears it from afar is the bark of a dog, because he is afraid of it. Also of chili peppers and whips. The soul takes revenge on womanizing men. Many inhabitants of Los Llanos speak of seeing him, particularly during summer, season in which the Venezuelan savanna sears under the strength of drought, and El Silban sits in the stumps of trees and gathers dust with his hands. But he is primarily encountered in times of humidity and rain, when the spectre roams hungry for death and avid to punish the drunk, the whoremongers, and from time to time an innocent victim. It's said that he sucks on the navel of drunk men when he finds them alone to drink the alcohol that they drank, and he rips apart the whoremongers. He takes off the bones and puts them inside the bag in which he carries his dad's remains. Some versions say that he looks like a long giant, 6 meters tall, who walks from treetop to treetop while he emits his terrifying whistling and rattles inside the dusty old bag the pale bones of his misfortuned father, or as some claim, his multiple victims. Other versions state that he presents as the shade of a tall and slender man with a hat, specially to drunk people. It is said that El Silban may appear near a house on some nights, leaving the bag on the floor and counting the bones one by one. If 1 or more people hear him, nothing will happen, but if no one hears, by dawn a family member will die in his sleep. In the Colombian eastern Llanos, where he is called El Silbador, they believe it's the wandering soul of a party-loving womanizer who died in solitude, and people claim that he seeks the company of someone who dares ride horseback late at night. But this kind version is an exception because, also in Colombia, some others say he chases pregnant women, that his whistling penetrates the ear, chills, and that, if someone hears a high-pitched tone it omens the death of a woman, while a low-pitched tone omens the death of a man. In any case, that woman or man is generally someone known by the one that heard the whistling. Edit. Finish translating. This gave me chills, dude. I'm not one to believe folklore, but your story is way too similar to just ignore it, mainly because you have no way at all to know about this particular legend. Edit 2. I just saw the video, and as my countryman would say, El cono de su madre. That's the creepiest shit I've ever seen, and I can't believe Op delivered proof. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.